is recording.
Got it. It's
Please
visible.
start, Ritu.
Yeah. You can use problem solving when you want to reach a particular goal, but you cannot immediately figure out the best pathway toward the goal. There are 4 aspects of problem solving, which we will be learning in stages of problem solving, which is block 4, unit 2. Now, what are the 4 aspects of problem solving? The first thing is understanding the problem. Second is problem solving strategies. Third is factors that influence problem solving. And the fourth is creativity. In order to understand a problem, you must pay attention to the relevant information. Then you can represent the problem, for instance, by using symbols or diagrams. In some cases, people may solve a complex problem in their daily life, even though they cannot solve a similar problem on a classroom exam. According to current research, problem representation is often influenced by environmental cues and by cues related to your own body. After you understand a problem, you must figure out how to solve it. And that you will be able to do only after you understand a problem. Many problem solving approaches are based on heuristics. Now, what is heuristic? A heuristic is a general rule that typically produces a correct solution. It is like an intelligible guess, a tentative solution. One heuristic is the analogy approach, in which you solve the current problem based on your experience with similar previous problems.
Sorry. I think Seema, you need to, is it like we can still see the only title, cognitive psychology of the presentation?
You want me to move ahead?
No.
She's just taking us to the recap thing now.
Okay. Recap as well as, the comprehensive, whatever we are going to learn.
Okay, thank you.
The second approach is the means end heuristic, in which you break a problem into sub-problems and then solve these individual sub-problems one by one and then finally reach to the main problem. A third heuristic is the hill climbing heuristic. At every choice point, you simply choose the alternative that seems to lead most directly towards your goal. So you have various solutions. So whichever is leading you to the, the goal, you choose that direction and move ahead with that. Something that takes you faster to your goal. Now, what are the factors that influence problem solving? It also emphasizes that top-down processing and bottom-up processing are both important in effective problem solving. Now, there is something called creativity, right? That is also one of the aspects of problem solving, which we have also learned in previous classes and we will be learning today and in further classes as well. So creativity can be defined as finding solutions that are novel, that is new and useful. The research shows that people are generally more creative when they are working on the project because it is enjoyable rather than because they might win a competition. Suppose you have some competition, you're preparing for that competition and, you may or may not win the competition also because you're not enjoying. But when you're actually passionate about something, you will enjoy and you will be more creativity. You're going to use all your skills to reach because that is your passion, because you're enjoying it. Every day you solve dozens of problems for sure. For example, think about the problems you worked on today. Now, suppose you were going on a bicycle, like you're riding a bicycle, you're going to your friend's home. Then your bicycle broke, the tire broke. Now, what do you do next? Can anyone tell me? It broke in the middle of the road. What will you do then?
I park it aside and go away walk.
No, your friend's house is really far.
Lift or take friend's help who can pick me up.
Since it is very far, I don't think the friend will be able to reach you. Anyways, let us just see how it goes. Okay. So, you have various problems, like suppose you have to repair a bicycle, or you planning a summer holiday tour, or patching up with a broken friendship. You fought with your friends. So now these are the problems. In some cases, the solution is reached quickly. See, as in repair of a bicycle, suppose the shop is very close to you, right? You can go, you can repair a bicycle because it is immediately available. The cues are immediately available. The help is immediately available, whereas others are more complex and require time and effort. Certain problems, like suppose you have to fix the friendship, with your friend, whatever you have broken, it will take time. No, it's not that yesterday you fought and today you will be like, hey, chalo, chalo, we will stop, we'll start talking, just forget whatever happened. No, because certain problems takes time. Problem solving is thinking that is goal oriented. It is not just any other thinking which we are thinking. We have like around 50 to 80,000 thoughts per day. So it is not, all the thoughts are not problem solving or creativity. So problem solving is thinking that is goal oriented. It has got some goal. Almost all our day to day activities are directed towards a goal. Here, it is important to know that problems are not always in the form of obstacles or hurdles that one faces. It could be a simple activity that you perform to reach a defined goal. For example, preparing a quick snack for your friend who has just arrived at your place. In some problem solving, there is an initial state. What is initial state? That is the first state, that is the problem. And there is an end state, that is the goal. So there is the initial state and there is an end state. These are two anchors which are connected by means of several steps or mental operations. Now see, even these anchors are connected by means of several steps or mental operations. Now what are obstacles in solving problem? There are two kinds of obstacles. One is mental set. Suppose you have a certain kind of thinking which is very rigid and you have to solve a problem. There are various methods of solving problem. But just because you have that kind of orthodox mentality, you would not want to adopt the other kind of solutions. So that is a backlog, that is an obstacle in solving your problem. The second is lack of motivation. People might be great at solving problems, but all their skills and talents are of no use if you're not motivated, right? Because sometimes you do need motivation. You have the skills, you have the talent, but there's no point if you do not showcase it, if you do not represent it. Now, we also learned in previous classes that cognition is the acquisition, storage, transformation, and use of knowledge. Now, transformation of knowledge is an important component because thinking requires you to go beyond the information you were given. So you have certain previous information and you have to think about it, right? You have to transform so that you can reach a goal. Now, the goal may be a solution, a belief, or a decision as well. So understanding the problem. What is understanding the problem? It is a part of steps in solving the problem. So there are 4 steps in solving a problem. First is understanding. Second is selecting a strategy to solve it. Third is factors influencing. And fourth is creativity. So first is understanding the problem, which means that you have constructed a well-organized mental representation of the problem based on both the information provided in the problem and your own previous experience. So you have to understand a problem and you are representing it mentally, right? So whenever there is something, you actually form a mental representation, right, which happens in your mind. So let us learn the nature of the problem now. There are different ways to understand a problem. First is paying attention to the relevant information. Seema, next slide. Next. Yes. There are different ways to understand a problem. What are the different ways to understand a problem? First is paying attention to the relevant information. See, you have lot of information, lot of thoughts going on into your brain, right? Into your mind. Now, when you have to solve a problem, how do you do it? You have to first eliminate the unwanted, the irrelevant information and consider and take only those which are relevant, which are useful, which are necessary for you to solve that particular problem. And then methods of representing the problem. Now you should also represent the problem. So there are various methods also to represent. Third is situated cognition, which emphasizes how context helps you understand a problem, like to create spatial representation in your mind. Fourth is embodied cognition, how you use your own body, to understand a problem. Now, how can you use your body to understand a problem? You might ask me that, right? It is like using your own motor actions to solve your problem. If you have something to do with the motor skills, you can use it. In order to solve the problems, it is important to understand its different aspects and nature, that is to figure out what issues, obstacles, and goals are involved. So like I told you, attention is very important in understanding problems because competing thoughts can produce divided attention. When you have too many thoughts, your attention is just divided. So you should focus, your focus should be only on the ones which is relevant information and ignore the irrelevant information. As soon as the problem solver has decided which information is essential and which can be ignored, the next step is to find a good method to represent the problem. Now, problem representation refers to the way you translate the elements of the problem into a different format. So there are different formats of representing a problem, means presenting a problem. If you choose an appropriate representation, you are more likely to reach an effective solution to the problem. Now, see, there are various methods of representing by using symbols. First thing.
Is this the one? Which are the slides? If you can just guide me, I'll accordingly show the slides.
Yes.
Is this the one? Okay. Let me know when I have to move next because I'm trying to relate the two.
Yeah, sure. First one is symbols. Now, what is symbol? Now, when in math class or statistics class, you're asked, there's a variable. Now, it's like statistics is denoted by X, psychology is denoted by Y. So these are nothing but your symbols. For example, M represent Mary's age, right? M for Mary. S represents Susan's age. So these are nothing but your assumptions. You can use as symbols. These are used for abstract problems like math. You do it in math, right? All these assumptions. The second is matrices. What is matrix? It is a grid consisting of rows and columns showing all possible combinations of items. It is an excellent way to keep track of items, particularly if the problem is complex, which means it is very complicated and difficult. Third is diagrams. It is helpful for new piece of equipment. It allows you to represent abstract information in a concrete fashion. Suppose you're working in a company and there are like a lot of people above you, your superior. So this is in hierarchy, right? Like you have shareholders followed by directors, followed by a lot of people. So how are you going to remember them? So there's a tree, right? Which will actually represent all the people in the hierarchy so that it is easy for you. So this diagram is helping you. It is like even a family tree, right? Suppose you have a joint family, how do you remember? So the family tree will help you in representing the information. The next is visual images. Now, what is visual image? See, even while I'm talking to you people, some people will be imagining. When I said about a family tree, you will definitely would have imagined, right? So that is visual images. So you create visual image, even that helps you in understanding and solving a problem. The second is generating solution, which means finding variety of potential solutions for the problem. In that, you see that there are certain problems, the solutions are very simple, easy to find, whereas certain problems, the solutions are very difficult to find. One can use their past experience sometimes to solve a problem, your present resources, and thinking critically about the problem. What is critical thinking? A deep thinking, analyzing the problem. And there are certain other strategies which can also be used to solve problems. The first one is judging the best among the likely solution. See, at this stage, we must evaluate each alternatives and outcomes of the problem. So you have alternatives and you will be evaluating the best one out of it. The objective of this step is to move closer to the goal because you're evaluating, you're judging. So you're moving closer to the goal, learn about major obstacles which you can remove one by one, hidden cost of the particular solution. So if there is any consequences or something, you can just remove that. Choose the best solution. So you may have one or more solution, whichever you find is feasible for you, you can just choose that and move ahead. In that, the first is carrying out the best solution. This stage involves actually working out the best solution. Various strategies can be adopted in reaching the solution. Like algorithms and heuristics are the strategies which can be used depending upon the requirements of the problem, which we will be learning further in the same unit, in the same class. Next is evaluation of the solution. In this stage, the problem solver compare the solution with the representation of the problem. The part taken from the initial state to the goal state is checked as whether it is specified as legal or not. Sometimes the evaluation state leads to the conclusion that the problem has not been solved adequately, and thus one starts from an earlier state again, depending upon the source of the inadequacy, which also means in the school, your teacher used to give some math problem, right? Math homework to you. She's already done in the class, and the similar problem she's giving it to you to do it at home. So you follow the same steps. Tomorrow you go to the class, you show it to your ma'am. Some certain students, they have arrived at the right answer. Okay. So you don't have to move backwards again. You don't have to start from the beginning. Whereas some people got confused, they did half the problem right. So what happens? So till wherever you got right, it is fine. So from wherever your problems or the step was wrong, you will have to redo them. That's all. So that is what it means. Evaluation of the solution. So when you evaluate, when the teacher is evaluating, the conclusion of the evaluation is you have to start the problem, from again, like from the initial state. Second is strategies for problem solving. What are the strategies? Once you have represented the problem, once you're presenting the problem, what happens next? You try to solve it by using a strategy. So next thing is you have to make a strategy in your mind. Some are time consuming while others are not. So some strategies take just a lot of time and some are very easy. So there are two which are commonly used. The first is algorithm. The second is heuristic. Now, what is algorithm? It is a step-by-step process. It is a well-defined instructions for carrying out a particular task. It is an algorithm is a step-by-step procedure or a process that will always produce a correct answer. You will always arrive at the correct answer. Although the process can sometimes be inefficient and unsophisticated. A mathematical formula is a good example. See, though you understand the problem or not, though you're able to implement that or not, if you do it, if you understand, if you follow, you will arrive at the right answer. Sometimes it might take a lot of time for you to understand and arrive, but it will lead you to the right answer. You must know the algorithm, first of all, right? You should know the formula, right, to solve the problem. That is complete set of steps, which is not usually realistic for the problems of daily lives. They are applied version of deductive reasoning, which usually apply to or more technical tasks. So you need a lot of understanding. Algorithm is not used by chance. It is facts, right? These formulas are not by chance. You cannot just, get to the, now there's Carl Pearson's product moment correlation. Can you use regressions formula and then arrive at this? No, right? It is not by chance. So you have to follow certain procedure. See, I can give another example. If you are given a 3-letter anagram, that is YBO, YOB, BYO, or BOY. you try to figure out all the possible number of combinations, right? To reach the actual, to solve the actual anagram, right? See, sometimes it might even take a lot of time for you. Now there is a word called, see, okay, I'll just share it later after the class. So there is something which is given in the textbook. It is just a 14-letter word, which is given in the textbook. Can you believe it that it actually takes 87 billion? It has 87 billion possibilities. That means arrangements. You can arrange in so many different ways. Now, the other day I told you that, when we were talking about illumination and all that, I told you that I wanted to transfer some amount through Google Pay and I forgot my PIN. Completely. I didn't even know how my PIN starts, because if I know the starting, I would know the entire PIN. But all I knew is the total of my PIN is number 6. Now, even if you try to get it, you will not get it. Somehow you will total, you'll take 6 different numbers, calculate, and you'll get a number 6. But what do you know? What is the arrangement, right? What is the sequence? So it is very difficult. So algorithm is very difficult. You will definitely find a solution, but it is time consuming. So you should have patience and time. In the absence of an algorithm, suppose that is not the option now, you have no time, then learners must instead use a heuristic approach. Next, what is heuristic? It is a general problem solving strategy that may or may not yield a successful outcome. It may or it may not. It is like a tentative solution, a temporary solution, like a hypothesis, right? What is hypothesis? It is again same. It is like an answer. You're just guessing it. But on some facts, the above strategy of looking only for pronounceable letter, anyway, we will talk about that later, the bigger letter, whatever I was telling, the alphabet. A heuristic is a general rule that is usually correct, an intelligent guess, intuitive judgment. Sometimes you have this intuitive feeling, okay, this is right, this might be right. Suppose there is band or something and you want to go to submit the assignment. You can drive your vehicle and go, but again, you have kind of intuition that, you will find the watchman, so you can hand over. If you have the strong intuition, and you will actually find him, because it is by chance. It may or may not happen. So you may find him or you may not find him. In this approach, you would ignore some alternative and explore only those alternatives that seem especially likely to produce a solution. See, there are a lot of alternatives to solve this problem, but what will you do in heuristic? You will go to the most simplest and the shortcut method. It is like a shortcut method. In that sense, what happens? You're actually ignoring the other possibilities, the other outcomes, wherein you could actually use this. They do not aim for novel solutions. So you're not getting any new ideas. Again, just going to the old, you don't mind following the old method and everything, 3 widely used heuristics are the analogy, the means end heuristics, and hill climbing heuristics. The next, we will go to techniques of problem solving. The way to solve a problem depends on the nature of the problem itself. What kind of a problem is this? Only then you will be able to solve the problem. Now, domain-specific problem-solving approaches are preferred as it provides a solution that works only for a limited class of problems. Now, what is domain-specific problem? For example, if you want to check your account balance, you would go to the nearest ATM or check in your phone these days. You don't even have to go to the ATM, right? Or if you want to, become an organizational behaviorist or organizational psychologist, you will not take clinical or counseling. You will take up organizational psychology, right? Or if you want to go to, if you want to travel, you will consult a travel agent and not bank. So that is how it is. So this is called domain-specific problem-solving approach. Again, it is limited, right? The next, under that, there is generate and test technique. That is nothing but trial and error. If you actually relate to it, trial and error. This technique is used to solve well-defined problems. Now, what is well-defined problem? A well-defined problem has an initial state and a goal state. Like I told you, there is a problem and there is a solution. There is no, It's not that there is a problem and there is no solution. So that is well-defined problem. This consists of generating or producing possible solutions and testing them. So you have a lot of possible solutions and you're testing them one by one, like trial and error. Now, solutions could be generated randomly, but solution is not guaranteed. Sometimes you're generating the solution by chance because you're trying out, right? Suppose you're preparing a new dish, you're just trying out. So it might come out well, it might not come out well. This type of technique is suitable when there are less possibilities, obviously. It's like you keep trying until you reach the solution or you run out of possibilities. You keep trying until then. Example, like I told you, if you have to remember my PIN, what happens? You keep trying until you reach, or you just leave it. There is no more possibility left and you have not got the answer. So you keep trying until then, endlessly. The second is means end analysis. Now, what is means end analysis? Breaking the problems into sub-problems or smaller problems. Means end analysis. It has two important components. First, you divide the problem into a number of sub-problems or smaller problems, and then you try to reduce the difference between the critical state and the goal state for each of the sub-problems. It is a version of divide and rule, that is divide and conquer. The name means end heuristic requires you to identify the ends, that is final result. So there is an end, there is a solution, you have to identify that first, that you want to reach, and then figure out the means. Means means methods to reach that goal. So first you're identifying the end, that is means and end. So you're identifying the means, and next is you are trying to figure out the means or the method to reach that end goal. The problem solver needs to focus on the difference between initial state and the goal state. So there is an initial problem and there is a goal, right? So what do? You try to bring down the, you try to make the problem much more simpler. So you actually bring down, you actually subtract. How do you subtract? Plus, see, there is a bigger number, 5 minus 2 is equal to 3. Now you have to work on 3. So that is how you bring down the difference, bring down the balance, and initial problem and goal problem becomes 1. So you actually reach your solution. According to research, it is one of the most effective and flexible problem solving strategies. For example, if you want to travel to a new place, what do? Okay, suppose you're going to a new place, you don't know how to like there are various methods of reaching, and you have this one Google Maps to reach a problem. You have various ways of reaching there. So you will try one by one, right? And as and when you're reaching, you're just thinking, okay, I'm one step closer, and okay, I'm another step closer. So you initial state is your house. The goal state is the college where you want to go to submit the assignment. So you're going for the first time. You're just since you're going for the first time, you're actually keeping a tab on that. So each time you reach, like after every 5 minutes, you're checking, okay. So you're actually reducing that balance, you're reducing, and you're reaching closer, one step closer, and you finally reach the goal. So that is heuristic. The third is backward search. This method is called goal directed. It is goal directed. This strategy starts with a goal state and the operator moves backward towards the initial state. Suppose you form a hypothesis, like in research method, you solve the problem, you came to a conclusion, then the conclusion is wrong. What do? You have to go back one by one from the initial state, and you have to start again from there. So that is backward search. An example would be finding the path through a maze by working from the end of the maze to the beginning. Like the other day Vasudha said, right? So she would always, whenever there's this maze wala problems, whenever there's a chocolate in the end state, that is the goal state, she would directly go from there to the initial problem, that is from where it begins from, because sometimes the initial, you have lot of possibilities. When there are too many possibilities, what will happen? It'll take a lot of time for you to reach the chocolate, right? But you want to eat it soon. So you will start from the chocolate itself. So that is backward search, and you will reach your solution. See, if you have watched this CID or this police investigation and all, what does this happen? Now some crime happens, right? Crime is something that is goal that has already happened. Now what are you doing? You're actually investigating, right? So you're going backwards at how it happened, who did it, right? So you investigate. The next is planning strategy. The problem is divided into two things, that is simple and complex aspects. First, the simple aspect of the problem is solved, and later the complex one is solved. Obviously, now when you had this assignment to write, you had section A, section B, section C. So some people find it really difficult to start with the section A. So you feel that, okay, I'll start with section C because it seems to be very simple. Then slowly you go to section B and then go to the most difficult, that is section A. A common kind of planning strategy is analogy. The problem can be solved by referring back to previous successful experiences with similar problems. It's like you already have, solved a particular type of problem. A similar type of problem you will be able to solve them by using your previous experiences. It's like white is to black, then up is to down. It is opposite, right? So this white and black is nothing but the previous thing. That is opposites, you understood. So now you know the opposite of up, that is down. Another example is hammer is to nail, comb is to hair. The next is thinking aloud. It involves presenting a problem or question and then observing people think aloud, talk about what they are thinking as they work through the problem and the reasoning behind these solutions. So verbal description obtained is called protocol here. See, it involves presenting a problem or a question. So you are not presenting the problem in the form of writing. It is actually oral. So that is thinking aloud. So whatever you're thinking, you're presenting it aloud, that is verbally. So thinking aloud protocols are verbal reports made by experimental participants. So whoever is participating in a certain experiment, where all of the mental processes, thoughts, strategies, etc., which are involved in performing assigned tasks. So there is some task which has been assigned to you, you're performing. So whatever things you went through, you're just describing that, you're just representing that through your speech, through verbal communication, and those are recorded for future use or future analysis. The next is other strategies. Now, there are few strategies which we will go through quickly. First is abstraction. What is abstraction? It allows you to create a general idea of what the problem is and how to solve it. Now, this process instructs us to remove all the specific detail and any pattern that will not help. So you will only focus on something that will help. You will focus only on that idea which is going to help you solve the problem. Now, this idea is called model. So this technique is actually involving solving the problem in a model of the system before applying it to the real system, that is called abstraction. Second is divide and conquer, like breaking down a large complex problem and solving it. Third is hypothesis testing. What is hypothesis testing? It is assuming a possible explanation to the problem, like heuristic, and trying to prove the assumption. So you have already made an assumption, okay, this is going to be the answer, and that will actually be the answer most of the times. Next is lateral thinking. It involves looking for alternative ways of defining and interpreting problems. So there are alternative ways of defining and interpreting the problem. Next is method of focal points, that is synthesizing seemingly non-matching characteristics of different objects into something new and reaching to a solution. So there are two non-matching characteristics of different objects, and you actually are trying to combine that. So that is method of focal objects. The next is reduction. See, one example what I can give you of reduction is, suppose I want to skip something from this unit. I will say, okay, anyways, you're going to learn in the next unit, right? So I'm going to skip this. So that is, I'm reducing my own problem. So reduction also may be done by transforming the problem into another problem for which solution exists. So obviously the solution is existing right in the next unit. So I would just skip it. So that is reduction. Next is research. Research, which means search again, which involves employing existing ideas. You already have existing ideas, or adapting existing solutions to similar problems. Root cause analysis, eliminating the cause of the problem. Now Vasudha had a problem, right? She had to remove her wisdom tooth. So you have that wisdom tooth is giving you problem. So what do? You remove the cause of the problem. So you have no more problem. Next is trial and error. Testing possible solutions until the right one is found, right? Until and unless you find, you keep trying. Next is brainstorming. What is brainstorming? It is to let the minds think freely. Imagination should be given priority over judgment here, till the ideas are exhausted. That person should keep trying, and there should be no one to interfere with the idea. This helps in increasing fluency of ideas. So ideas are flowing, right? One by one, when there is no interference, and piling up all the possible alternatives. So this is brainstorming, thinking out of the box, allowing him to think freely. So next we will move to creativity and problem solving, which we have learned, which we will be learning now, which we will be learning in future also. So creativity and problem solving. Now, what is creativity? Can somebody just give me a quick answer to creativity, so that anyway I will not repeat it as I already have to. I think everybody is sleeping.
नहीं
Vasudha, बोल ना.
I am attentive यार. Creativity का नाम सुन के मैं जाग जाती हूँ.
Question probably.
What?
Network problem. So creativity is something new, something novel, something out of the box thinking.
Yes, something.
So like example is like you thought that I mean students will tell the definition of creativity rather than teacher. So you thought it creatively.
Creativity is using my tooth extraction as an example.
Okay, fine. So
Both have the word root also in that. Okay,
Right,
moving
right.
on.
Yeah.
So it refers to originality and uniqueness of ideas or solution that did not previously exist, something new that was not there, right? Or taking your old ideas and making it new. Suppose you have this rocking chair, right? How did that idea of rocking chair come in? By combining the idea of chair plus seesaw, right? Then they made a rocking chair. So that is also creative thinking. Now, whatever, these carpenters, these painters, or whatever Ritika is doing, all these involve creative thinking. Anybody could have that creative mind. Anyone can do it, So creativity and problem solving. And problem solving definition, I don't think I need to repeat because we have been learning only that so far. So under that, there are three kinds of skills. The first is selective encoding. What is selective encoding here? It is sorting relevant from irrelevant. So you have a lot of information, wanted, unwanted. So you take only the relevant, the wanted ones, and leave the other ones, ignore the other ones. Next is selective combination. It is combining all the pieces of information. So you have all the pieces of information in bits and pieces. What are you doing? You're just combining one by one. Suppose you want to make biryani. So the end goal is biryani. So you have a lot of process in between, cutting vegetables, doing this, soaking rice. So one by one you do it, then combine and make biryani. So next is selective comparison. It is making connection to previously learned information. So you have certain previous information, you have some present information, you're just making comparison and you're restoring in your mind. So that is selective comparison. So next we will move to stages which are involved in creative discoveries, I think, which has already happened, which we will quickly do it now. So there are a few stages. There are 4 stages that are involved in creative thinking or creative discovery. The need for search of new ideas and solution arises from sensing problems and gaps in information, right? So whenever there is a gap in information, that's when you feel there is a need, right? Mother of all invention, when you say, right? That is discovery. I mean, necessity is the mother of all inventions. The process of creative thinking begins with the preparation stage first. What is preparation stage? That requires one to understand the task or the problem in hand, then analyze the problem and become aware of the background facts, all the details and related information to that problem. So you gather all the information, planning and everything. The process evokes curiosity and excitement to think more and more in different directions, all the dimensions possible. The person also tries to look at the task or problem from different angles and viewpoints. Here, divergent thinking abilities play the role to help one extend into new directions. Now, what is divergent thinking? Which means you have various solutions, you will adapt one. So you have a lot of ideas. So you will take in one. So that is divergent, many. Now, when the person is trying to generate alternative ideas and trying to view the problem or task from an unusual perspective, in a different perspective, there may be a feeling of getting stuck. Sometimes you just get stuck, right? When you're just trying to view now what to do. Like the other day when I had to, try the pin because I already used 2 attempts. Now I had only one last attempt. So I got stuck. So one may even get disgusted with failure and may leave the problem or the task for some time. That's what I did. I thought, okay, just take a break. I just lied down for some time, later went to the kitchen, did puja, and while doing puja, it's like illumination happened, It's like I just got the pin. I knew what the pin is. Quickly I came to the room, took a calculator, typed my pin, the total was 6. I knew, okay, that is the pin now. So that is next. Creative ideas may not occur immediately during incubation. When the individual is not consciously thinking about the problem, but seeking relaxation from conscious effort. They may occur or strike when a person is doing something else. For example, going to sleep, waking up, taking a bath, or just waking along, right? So if you keep thinking consciously, it is not going to happen, right? The more you think, the more you feel that you're a failed person or whatever. So just sometimes just take a chill pill. Yeah. The next is incubation, which I already told. Now, what is illumination? The next is illumination, that is getting the solution. So you have already got the solution. So you say, hooray, I got the solution. So when I came to the room, I just checked, I got the solution. See, I don't know, I'm just getting confused. The first was preparation, that is gathering all the possible information, viewing from all the angles, right? The next is incubation, that is keeping the problem aside. Now you already got the solution. The next is illumination, that is you got the solution. What are you going to do now? Next, verification. You are going to test whether it is right or wrong. So that you are going to do by typing the pin only, right? So verification, that is appropriateness of ideas. Just to test the appropriateness of ideas or solutions, what you have to do, you have to test and make judgments. Here, convergent thinking plays its role in selecting the appropriate idea. You can't select various, you will have to just choose one now. So these were the stages involved in creative thinking. Next is artificial intelligence. Now, what is artificial intelligence? All of us are using.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you? For the previous slide, I just wanted to know others' opinion of it. Incubation. Sorry, excuse me. That's my puppy. That's why I was running around. Incubation is very, very interesting because I don't know. I mean, I forget if there in any other subject, but how does that we step away and not think about it, that the solution arises? What is it in our brain, or in what is that process? I thought it's very interesting. I mean, the resting period. And when you rest, you get it.
Okay, one thing I would like
explain?
to
Okay, guys, can I explain?
Yeah, Vasudha, is it Vasudha? Just a minute.
Just a second.
Sure,
I just
sure,
want to say we have only one last topic left, which is artificial intelligence. Let's come. Isn't that Ritu? That's the last one, right? Let us just complete this and then we can open it for discussion so that then we can go on, whoever wants to stay. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Sure. Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Yeah, but I would like to answer incubation. See, it's like, have you ever heard that your parents, when you were a child, your parents and your teachers during exam, what did you tell? Don't study till late. Sleep
No, I
early.
understand the
Wake up early.
concept. The concept is completely clear for me. And I understand, I actually follow that, and I really, really believe in that. My thing is to go a little bit more higher to find out how this happens for
Okay,
us.
okay. So we will discuss once this last topic is done. This is the
Sure,
last
sure.
topic.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So the next is artificial intelligence and problem solving. See, all of us are using artificial intelligence. I don't think we can actually survive without it. You know, we even if we want to, we just can't. Artificial intelligence is a computer or a machine that has been created to think like a human. Computer thinks like a human, right? It performs task in the same way like the way human performs the task. It is computer programs that solve problems in ways that are similar to the intelligent way in which humans solve problems. You have any doubt? Just try it. You will get the solution. The idea behind it is that human reasoning can be understood, because the way we reason, no, a lot of studies has been done and defined based on input, that is your experiences, and output, that is your actions. When a human makes a decision, they consider certain important variables. So if you can enter the variables into a computer with artificial intelligence, you should get a logical response. So the way we people think, our cognition or anything, everything has been fed into the computer. That's why the computer is able to think like us, just a representation of our mind, of human mind. Now there are certain criticism of the computer simulation approach here. It cannot think the exact way a human thinks. It can be similar, but it cannot exactly think, right? Because everybody is unique. See, it takes into computer has got one set of program, which, like, if you're going to ask 1 + 1 is, the answer will be 2, right? So we have lot of ways of thinking. Every human thinks differently. Every being is different. The computer is same, be it one computer, two computer, like it's going to be same, right? There are n number of computers and every computer will be same, whereas humans will not be same. So we think differently and it cannot match all the human brains. And computers' efforts are also not appreciated. I mean, that's a very bad thing. We always say, okay, humans, because we have created the computers also, we have manufactured or created. For example, a computer may perform only the set of tasks given to it and not beyond that. There are certain things which is fed in the computer system. If we ask solution, there is a problem, we ask for it, it gives only those solutions which are fed, which the data is fed, nothing beyond that. But we can go beyond that, right? We can do critical thinking, we can do analytical thinking, we can do creative thinking, all sorts of thinking. Computer cannot do all kind of things. Something you ask, it is going to give the repetitive answer, whatever it has got. Now, a computer may validate only a set of predefined conditions provided to it for running certain tests, but may also fail in case of anomalies or any external factors condition which might influence a program. Yeah, that's it. Ritika, you can stop the record.